On the program today, we bring you some of the high points of the recently concluded Nigerian Bar Association Section on Business Law Conference, with the theme Bringing Down the Barriers, the Law as a Vehicle for Intra-African Trade. We also have some of the details of what transpired when the Center for Social-Legal Studies collaborated with the Federal Ministry of Justice to organize a national training for investigators across the country, plus our weekly recap of the top trending stories from the courtrooms. Hello and welcome to the program. I am Shola Shuyeli. The 12th Annual Business Law Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association Section on Business Law held in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, from the 27th to the 29th of June. The conferences have always served as the primary professional event for corporate and commercial lawyers, emerging market investors, regulators, members of the bench and public office holders to dialogue on policies and regulations that shape economic growth. This year's event was no different. It opened with a dinner which had the Vice President, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, as the special guest of honor, and his arrival kick-started the event.
And products were exchanged for groundnuts.
The chairman of the Conference Planning Committee, Oke Buchu, and the chairman of the Section on Business Law, Olumide Akpata, in their welcome remarks told the gathering how the theme was chosen and why it was topical.
For decades, Africa, hampered by bad leadership, unfortunately, and a lack of cohesion, found itself lagging other continents in virtually all indices of development, notwithstanding its richness in natural resources and young, energetic population. Perhaps a vestige of our colonial heritage, we found ourselves doing more business with other continents than within Africa. We, at the Council of the MBA Section on Business Law, knew that we had to focus our activities inwards, starting from the legal profession, Nigeria, and then Africa. And this has been how we have organized our conferences in the past 3-4 years. This year, the spotlight is, however, on Africa. Hence, the theme for the conference, Bringing Down the Barriers, the Law as a Vehicle for Intra-Africa Trade. Africa had slowly but long been working on enhancing trade within, and this culminated in the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which most African countries endorsed in March 2018, under the controversy caused by the snub of the signing ceremony by the chief promoter of free trade in Africa, Nigeria, under pressure from various interest groups. The federal government then decided to consult more with stakeholders. And at this conference, we have provided a platform for that continuous stakeholder engagement.
We were worried for a second when Nigeria decided to hold off on signing that it might affect our conference. However, Mr. President very wisely put together his interministerial committee and who have conducted a series of stakeholder fora around the country. And they reached out to the MBA also, and for which we're very glad. And so we found out that rather than throw a spanner in the works, the decision to hold consultations and the decision not to sign immediately provided us with a platform to further extend the conversation. And that consultation, luckily, that committee are here will soon be returning to Mr. President with their report. And it is hoped that, considering that they're very involved with this conference, that their report would also take into consideration all that we will deliberate upon here.
The chairman of the conference is the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Walter Onoge, who is represented here by Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Kayode Ariwola. The bench emphasized the importance of trade, but also pointed out some of the challenges of corruption, high tariffs and taxes, militating against it.
Intra-African trade today is a panacea for development. It can help the African industries become more competitive by creating economies of scale and encouraging producers that are less productive in the marketplace. It can establish and strengthen product value chains and facilitate, through spillover effects, the transfer of technology and knowledge. It can also spur infrastructure development and attract foreign direct investments. For these reasons, expanding intra-African trade is a key to accelerating economic growth on the continent. It is especially important for the continent's small landlocked countries that are faced with serious challenges trading internationally. Other regions of the world enjoy significantly higher levels of internal trade. For example, developing countries in Asia and member countries of the European Union. It is particularly of concern that intra-African trade does not seem to be converging to these international levels. Rather than emulating these continents, Africa is still bedeviled with serious issues that do not seem to serve the continent any good economically. Africa is notorious for bad customs, environment that poses impediment to intra-Africa trade. The high fees that custom offices charge is a problem that, if not checked, will continue to draw the continent backward. Your Excellencies, my lords, distinguished delegates, in order to overcome this menace, the African countries saw the need to consolidate existing market access scheme into one that is consistent with the Continental Free Trade Agreement in order to foster regional integration and trade diversification.
The president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Abubakar Mahmood, on his part, believes that the discussions here will provide knowledge and sensitize the country's leadership on the significance of cross-border trade on the continent.